California's gold is seen statewide on California Public Television. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association. Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and on this beautiful fall afternoon, I'm standing here right on the side of busy Pacific Coast Highway. Technically, we're in Malibu. The Los Angeles city limit sign is right there. And then you look right over here, doesn't get any prettier than this with the sun reflecting off the Pacific Ocean. But as beautiful as this is, we are not here to look at the ocean. We're here to spend a day at a very beautiful and a very historic place located right across PCH from the ocean. And trust me, from everything I've heard, this place is well worth a visit. Here we go. Okay, our adventure begins, and our tour guides today, introduce yourself to everybody.
I'm Guy Wheatley. I'm Manager of Administration.
Manager of Administration, and?
Ann Stein-Sapir, Education Department.
Education Department. Now it's time to give away where we are, because so far all we've said is that we're across PCH from the Pacific Ocean out here in Malibu. Let everybody know where we are right now.
We're at the Getty Villa.
At the Getty Villa as opposed to the
Getty Center.
Now the Getty Center is the hilltop right off the 405.
That's correct.
This is the Getty Villa, and before we go any further, we need to explain who Getty was, because Getty is one of those names that we all know, but we don't really know why we know the name. Who was J. Paul Getty?
Well, J. Paul Getty, just to start you off, was a millionaire. He was...
Wait a minute, he was a billionaire.
A billionaire, that's right, I
With
forgot
a B.
now. Yes, sorry. One of the richest men in the world during his period of life. And he started with Getty Oil, which is now no longer with us, sad to say.
He was a wealthy man, and he was a cultivated man, let's say. Being educated, being cultured was important to him. And amongst the things he did with his huge sums of money was buy a lot of art.
Okay. He bought a lot of art, and this is why we're standing in front of this building right here. This building, J. Paul Getty acquired back in
1945.
But he acquired it and the 60 acres around it here in Malibu, not as an art gallery, but as a place kind of to retreat, kind of hang out here at the beach.
That's correct. He owned several houses in Los Angeles, one in Hancock Park, one on the beach in Santa Monica, and he bought this house as, I think, a getaway.
But it did not remain a getaway for long, did it?
That's correct. He started collecting art in the late 1930s and eventually decided to open several rooms of this house as the Getty Museum in 1954.
Okay, so the whole Getty Museum started right here in this house. This was not built as a museum, as a gallery.
That's correct. The museum opened in 1954. By 1957, they were already building gallery spaces.
Inside the house?
Inside the house.
And it really wasn't open to the public very much, was it?
No, it was open 2 days a week for 2 hours each day, and you had to make an appointment. There was another day I think you could bring groups, but that was about it. So
and what would you see when you went in to see these galleries?
Well, you would see some things actually outside, in the courtyard outside the building. That would be some antiquities and some great sculptures. Then you would walk inside and you would see the rest of his collection of antiquities in a long gallery that he had built for them, plus reproductions of Louis XIV rooms that are just absolutely lavish.
Pictures of the Louis XIV rooms
Stunning.
Inside this California mission-style Malibu ranch house.
A little incongruous, right? But they also had a theater that was also in sort of a Louis XIV style. So he loved decorative arts. He loved paintings. There were a few paintings in the collection at that time as well.
But this took place inside this ranch house during the 50s and 60s, and then his collection, because he was acquiring things, find things all over the world, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
The collection just kept growing and growing
Grew and
and
grew
growing.
and grew, and finally by the late 1960s, he decided it was time to build a bigger museum on the property.
Okay, that's our next stop. We're leaving this beautiful old ranch house, which was the site of the first Getty Museum and Gallery, and heading down, it's not very far from where we're standing right here, to what he built to house his ever-growing collection of art from all over the world. Taking absolutely nothing away from that beautiful old historic ranch house, we have now come to what J. Paul Getty built and opened up in the 1970s. Look at this. This is absolutely overwhelming, and this is the money shot. This is the shot that everybody wants to see when they visit the Getty Villa.
Yes, it is.
What are we looking at?
Well, we're looking at a replica of an ancient Roman villa. Mr. Getty really was very enamored with the ancient Romans, and he had taken trips to the Bay of Naples when he was a young man. He fell in love with a particular villa called the Villa dei Papiri in Herculaneum on the Bay of Naples in a climate much like ours in Southern California.
This isn't the original villa. I mean, he didn't buy it and transport it here.
No. He had his builders get a hold of the archaeological plans. He brought it here, and he had his builders replicate it. So it's really a replica of the Villa dei Papiri, except one difference is that this long, what we call a peristyle court, because of the columns around, was parallel to the coast in Italy, and it's perpendicular to our coast because it fits in our little valley.
See the mountains up here, and he owned all of this acreage around
That's right.
here. So the setting was perfect.
It was
for
perfect.
this as well.
And perfect climate. I mean, it's really a Mediterranean climate in Southern California. So
Can we walk around? What kind of an impact did this have when it opened up out here in 1974 and people walked in here for the first time and saw something like this? Because this is absolutely spectacular.
It is spectacular, and I think most people were just overwhelmed by it. But I will tell you, the critics didn't like it. They thought it was a piece of Southern California schmaltz. We have Disneyland, we have the Madonna Inn, and now some billionaire is building a replica of a Roman villa. How ridiculous.
And you know, I thought you said he liked Louis XIV up in the old ranch house. He had rooms of gilded French furniture.
That's right, but I think his true love was the ancient Romans. He had taken a tour as a young man, sort of fell in love with Pompeii and those eras, just in the first centuries of the Roman. First centuries of the Common Era, and I think he fell in love with those buildings. Look at them. I mean, gracious and beautiful for entertaining, covered walkways and very elegant, beautiful paintings on the walls.
And look at this pool. Now, what was the deal on the pools? Was that traditional back in what period of Roman history are we talking about?
Well, we know it was destroyed in 79 A.D. So we know first century, about 100 years just before the beginning of the turn of the eras to about 79 A.D., this sort of house was built for Romans. They would build these villas as a way to get away from city life. So wealthy Romans had several villas.
Wait a minute, this was a house?
This was a house. This was a home where people came like you go for a vacation. They would get away from business, get away for leisure time where they could bring their friends. Now, we believe that a long pool like this would have actually held fish in it. Would have been deep enough, maybe 6 meters to hold fish, where the family could have their slaves, fish.
And all these trees, I mean, it would have been very lush and lots of fruit.
This is all authentic. We've tried to really replicate what the gardens would have been as well.
And look at this. Now, what was the purpose of this open hallway here? What do you call this?
This is a peristyle. Peri is surround and stylus is column.
Look how you look through the windows there.
And look at the trompe-l'oeil, the feeling that you actually have three-dimensional architecture with the painting.
This is all exactly the way it would have been in Roman days?
Yes, in a villa much like this, you would find paintings much like this. Very much. The Romans loved to decorate their walls with painting.
Look at this. This is spectacular.
Oh, I love it. I do. I love it.
Does everybody have the same reaction? I mean, I don't know whether I like looking down this way architecturally or like looking out this way at the foliage and the trees and the greenery. It's just it's a feast for the eyes.
I was just going to say the same thing. It is a feast for the eyes. And this is very Roman and Southern Californian, where we really want to bring our outdoors indoors. And this sort of covered passageway allow us to be inside and protected from the sun or the torrential rains, and still be outside enjoying our gardens, listening to the water, and smelling the herbs. And this was very much part of the milieu of ancient Roman homes.
When people come here to visit, do you have to pry them away from out here to get them inside to see the galleries?
I think you do. I think most people come here and they don't want to leave. And so you say, okay, come on, you must come in and at least look at a couple of our beautiful pieces, please.
Because you really don't have any of the pieces out here. A few pieces of statuary.
Now those are replicas.
Look out here at this. This is just such a beautiful view, looking across at the trees and the water. It's just spectacular.
Yeah, it is. I'm so glad you love it.
Well, has anybody ever come here and not fallen in love with this? See, I'm one of these people. I'm guilty. How many years have I lived in Southern California? I've never been to the Getty Villa.
And I'm very disappointed to hear that.
There are a lot of people who haven't been.
I know, and I think that's one of our challenges here in the education department, the management department as well, is to get people to bring the villa back on your radar screens in Southern California. Because it's such a wonderful, beautiful site, as you can see, but we have wonderful programming here. We just have wonderful things happen here. Very rich theater program and everything.
Wow.
So.
And this is open to the public how many days a week?
It's open Wednesdays to Mondays from 10 to 5.
Yeah, because we're here on a Tuesday.
Right.
We chose Tuesday, which is closed to the public.
That's right.
I don't know whether it probably takes on another kind of a feel when there are people wandering around here oohing and ahhing like I'm doing right now.
And it animates the site. And school children are here every single morning except the weekend, so it's wonderful. You hear their laughter and they're running around.
How do you keep them out of the pool?
Well,
it's a full-time job,
I don't
isn't
know.
it?
It's not deep enough that we had to have a lifeguard. I do know that. If it had been any deeper than it is, we would have had to have a lifeguard. So
now the galleries. Well, first let's talk about the sculpture. Now, is this all imported sculpture?
This
here?
is. Mr. Getty collected these pieces. These are actually replicas of the actual objects that were found at the Villa de Papiri at Herculaneum when it was excavated in the late 18th century. So there is a wonderful foundry in Naples who made these. And Mr. Getty bought them when he first opened this to decorate the outside. So we have replicas on the outside, but really authentic art on the inside.
Because this is just, this garden, and you say this is exactly the way the garden would have been in Roman times.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So part of the whole idea of having a villa, and see, there's your
pomegranate.
Mm-hmm. And roses and the hedges,
oleander.
all of this was part of the whole sense of place in these villas.
That's correct. Absolutely, because they really wanted to get away from their business lives and get out into this area where you really can relax. And these long peristyles were meant for walking and talking and discussing philosophy and the meaning of life and poetry and that sort of thing.
Oh my gosh, I am just... Look at this. I'm overwhelmed at what I'm seeing, and we're still outside. We've got to go see the major collection inside the villa. Now we're going inside the main, would this be called House of the Villa?
It's the villa.
The villa.
We're going
inside the villa, and look at this. I was excited about the gardens, about the outside. Look at this room, and what is the hole in the ceiling all about?
Well, this is called, if you want to know the Latin name, a compluvium. It's a
what?
A compluvium. Mm-hmm. And this is the impluvium down here, the pool.
This would have been rainwater.
This would have been rainwater. They opened, this is an element, this is called an atrium, this entire space, and it's an element that we find in Roman homes in Roman homes, even the most modest homes had this element because it allowed rainwater to be captured for family use.
Would people have been living, is this the house? Is this the main house?
Well, this is the main house on the first floor. The second floors in Roman homes were very marginalized spaces. It was for storage, and Rome, of course, was a slave economy, so slaves slept upstairs. But the living spaces were down here. And in many homes, the little galleries that we've converted to galleries would have been bedrooms.
Wow, and look, your eye just draws you out.
It does. It's just spectacular.
Now, is this another, would you call this a garden, a courtyard? What are we looking at here?
An peristyle, and for us this is an inner peristyle. Again, that word we used outside, just a surrounding colonnade.
And you're waiting here for us to tell us about this thing.
Yes,
Get
absolutely.
me excited about this because, well, it's not going to take much because this is pretty spectacular.
It's a gorgeous space. It's the center of the museum, really. Gardens are a huge part of the experience of visiting the Getty Villa. And it was, in a way, the inspiration for the design of the Getty Center, where it's designed as a series of pavilions where you go into a gallery, then outside, then into a gallery, then outside. That's reproducing the effect of walking around the first floor galleries here at the Getty Villa, where you go into the galleries around the perimeter and then come back outside and get refreshed in between so you don't get what they call museum fatigue.
So the galleries surround the courtyard.
That's correct.
And there's another one through here.
Yes, that's called the East Garden, and it includes a gorgeous fountain, two gorgeous fountains that are replicas of fountains from Antiquities.
Look at this. See, I'm like a kid in a candy store. When you come in here, there is so much to see.
Absolutely.
Look at this. Oh, this is a whole nother, and this is exactly the way it would have been.
Yeah, it's intended to give you the ambience, the feeling of a Roman garden. And this is a more enclosed one, a more peaceful one than the inner or outer peristyle.
Oh my gosh. And this villa was destroyed? How was it destroyed?
This villa, the Villa dei Papiri, was buried by Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD.
I thought that was Pompeii.
Well, there were several cities around Mount Vesuvius that were buried. And unlike Pompeii, which was covered with a fairly loose volcanic material, Herculaneum was buried under feet and feet and feet of mud. The Villa dei Papiri has only been partially excavated, so our knowledge of it is somewhat fragmented.
So how did he know how to reconstruct it?
Well, there was a lot of speculation, and a lot of the details come from a variety of Roman houses. It's not all just based on the Villa dei Papiri.
Boy, are these mosaics?
It is a mosaic fountain.
Oh my gosh.
And this is based on a fountain from a Pompeian house called the House of the Fountain.
Oh my gosh. This is just, and you know what? I think it's not only the fountain itself, but the setting here amongst the trees that really give it that sense of, look over here, you're looking right through. It is just beautiful, looking all the way through the villa. Now we're going inside, specifically to the Temple of Heracles. Is this Heracles right here?
This is Heracles, known to the Romans as Hercules.
Okay, and you brought us here because you said this was Mr. Getty's favorite piece of sculpture in his entire collection.
It was. It's purported to be his favorite piece, and actually, as Guy has told me, it was probably the reason the entire museum was built around this piece. You'll notice there's a circular building that Mr. Getty, we believe, actually designed himself for the piece.
This building right here.
This little room. The piece itself is called out in its own gallery. As you've seen when we walk through other galleries, there's many more pieces than most of them. So it gives a certain aura to this Heracles.
What was it that so attracted him to this particular statuary of Hercules?
Well, he was interested in pictures that depicted heroes, and he was interested in objects from distinguished collections. This piece is thought to have come from the Emperor Hadrian's collection.
So an emperor owned this.
Yeah.
And therefore, J. Paul Getty wanted to own it as well.
Absolutely.
Was it the history of these pieces or the cost of these pieces?
No, I think he was interested in the history and in quality. I think he, frankly, didn't necessarily want to pay a lot. He was tight with the dollar, and I think one of the reasons he collected French furniture and antiquities more so than paintings was that he felt he got a better value for his money.
Get a good deal on pieces of sculpture.
Yeah, so...
What about this piece over here? I just noticed there's more than one piece in this room.
Yes, there are. There are 3 pieces because one of the themes of this room is conservation or restoration. And if you notice, this is a beautiful depiction of Leda and the Swan, which is one of the paramours of the god Zeus, falling in love with a mortal woman, Leda. But
is this original?
Most of this has been restored. You'll see a very few parts of it are actually from antiquity, and that's because collectors like J. Paul Getty, earlier collectors, really wanted pieces that were complete. They didn't like fragments, unlike collectors today, and unlike we at the Getty Museum, really don't mind buying fragments. We love fragments.
From the Temple of Heracles to the Basilica, it just keeps getting better, and these galleries are all interconnected. The villa has how many galleries?
I was just trying to count it. It's around 30.
So there are a lot of galleries here filled with these antiquities from what periods? Because there's a specific period in the villa.
That's right. The earliest piece we have actually is about 6500 BC, and they range all the way up to about 500 of the Common Era or AD.
So we're talking about the Greeks, the Romans.
And the Etruscans, and then we have a room of Bronze Age and Neolithic, but primarily Greeks, Romans,
this
Etruscans.
Is all antiquity. That's what you mean when you say antiquity.
That's right.
As opposed to what's up at the Getty Center.
Well, the rest of the collection, the medieval period, Renaissance, Baroque, 19th century, we have all the way up to the 20th century.
That's up on the hill.
That's up on the hill.
The villa is the old period.
That's right.
And you just go from piece to piece. There's Venus. Here is
there's muses.
A muse. These pieces, they're everywhere in the gallery. For someone who loves this time period, this is a treasure trove.
It is a treasure trove, and it's the one collection devoted to antiquity west of the Mississippi. So it's really a wonderful resource for Southern California.
And the important thing is that you're still acquiring these pieces.
That's right. We're still collecting.
New collections, new pieces on loan, new acquisitions.
That's right.
Restoration.
It's a very vibrant site. Lots of things
all
going
happening right here at the villa.
That's right.
Well, we've been amazed and surprised at everything we have seen here at the Getty Villa today, but this tops them all. This is the most amazing thing, the biggest surprise, I think, of the whole tour. And what are we standing right next to right now in this beautiful garden?
This is a citron tree. It's in the lemon family, and they would have grown this typically in a Mediterranean garden.
So this whole garden is historically correct. This is another use of these villas. They would have grown what here? Not just flowers for the beauty of them, but...
No, these would all be plants grown for medicinal, culinary, ritual, and utilitarian uses.
What would they have done with the citrons?
This particular plant was grown for medicinal purposes. They would mix a little of the juice of this plant with wine, and it was thought to be an antidote for poison.
Ah, there was a lot of poisoning going on back then, wasn't
yes,
there?
Yes, there was.
Well, what are we looking at here? I was expecting to see a flower garden. This is not a flower garden. This is like an herb garden.
That's exactly what this is. So everything you find along here, they would have had some use for in their day-to-day activities.
Their diet.
Yes, correct.
What is this right here?
This is basil.
And how do you know they grew basil in ancient Rome?
There are a lot of records written down about the gardens in a lot of the homes that were
in the outskirts.
Back in the
I guess
day,
this
yes.
would have been in the country,
yes,
wouldn't it?
Yes, this would have been a country estate, and this would have been a typical garden for their kitchen.
This looks like, this is wine growing. These are grapes growing over here.
Yes, indeed.
So they had a lot of wine, they had a lot of herbs, they had a lot of citrus
yes.
here.
Yes.
Would the keepers of the house ever Would the owners of the house ever come out here, or was this just something for the gardeners, for the servants to do?
They would probably come out and walk through and admire the smells that you get from the plants here. This is a cardoon. This is in the artichoke family.
That's what I thought. That's a California plant, an artichoke.
Actually, the artichoke is, but the cardoon is Mediterranean.
This is a cardoon.
Correct. And it looks just like an artichoke when it grows.
Wow. And here's your obligatory fountain.
Yes.
Right here. Even in the herb garden, even in the functional herb gardens,
Well, we like
they
a little
had fountains.
beauty.
So when people come to the villa, this is kind of tucked off to the side. Do they find their way here? Do they know that this is part of the Getty Villa experience?
We have a wonderful education department and docents that do garden tours. So they'll bring you out here and go through all of the different plant material and tell you what the uses were for everything.
Because when you go to the Getty Center up on top of the hill, it's more of an ornamental garden.
Correct.
Flowers, blooming flowers, and things that make a real statement.
Correct.
This makes a statement in a historic way.
Exactly. And that's its whole purpose, is to educate people as to how Romans lived back in ancient times.
Well, we're ending up back out here. This is my favorite, although it's hard to choose what my favorite part of the Getty Villa is, but we're here on a Tuesday, which is ordinarily closed to the public. We're taking the tour today, but the work at the Getty Villa never stops, does it, Ann?
No, it does not. We have people here every day. There's always something to do.
Lots of weeding and manicuring and making sure these gardens are just as beautiful as they ever were, but the gardeners are just part of what goes on out here day in and day out.
Well, that's right, Huell. We have conservators here, we have curators here, we have educators here, we have registrars here, we have designers here, we have administrators here, we have caterers here.
We have visiting scholars here. We have a conservation training program here.
There's a lot going on out here.
There's a lot going on.
Right.
How many people come through the Getty Villa every year?
This year we're going to have somewhere between 350 and 400,000 visitors.
This is amazing. I'm almost embarrassed. Well, I am embarrassed to admit that I've never been here before, but I'll be back. This is one of those places that grows on you, isn't it?
It absolutely is. We
Because
hope you come back.
We've seen a lot, but there's a lot more to see.
Oh, yes. I was thinking as I was just talking to you about how much I'd like to tell you even more. So,
Yeah.
yes, it never ends.
Yeah, this wonderful place, the Getty Villa, this all started up there at the ranch house back in the 50s. It's grown into this and to the Getty Center up on top of the mountain. There's a lot going on with Getty these days, and it's all good. And the beautiful part of it is it's all here for all of us to visit and enjoy. We've had an absolutely wonderful day at the Getty Villa. You gotta go check out the Getty Villa for yourself. And if you'd like to go on this particular Getty Villa adventure again, or share it with family or friends, of course it's available on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.